I'm not black, I'm African.
Is that not black?
No.
Oh.
It's a big difference. You know what I'm saying? I came in a plane, they came in chains.
Can a white person or an Indian or a Chinese or a Japanese person be an African?
That's beautiful. I lived in Britain for some years. I lived in Netherlands and Utrecht for some time. I spent some time in the US. And while I was in Europe for those years, I never became a European by all practical purposes. If I can go and live in India right now, I'll never be an Indian.
6 generations later, 10 generations later.
My children can assume citizenship and stuff like that. But in all fairness, if a black man living in Sweden right now and in Germany cannot be addressed as a European, that's exactly what you're asking me. And even if he has children and they're on the paper it's written European, but are they European? You're asking the essence of identity. No, there's no white man who can become an African because there's no African who can become a European. Full stop. Not mixing my words. And that's a reality we need to start dealing with. Right now, even up to now, our black brothers that are in America, what are they called?
African Americans.
Yes. Why the suffix? Why the prefix and why the suffix?
Because the white Americans are not called Irish, Italian, Spanish.
You have your answer right there.
Hello, what's up guys? I hope you're doing well wherever you are. And I'm your presenter Turain. I welcome you back again to this platform. You know, I do understand that people have different perspectives and they got to be respected. And there's this idea that Africans are really pushing black Americans to be Africans, and it's very rampant. And I just want us to watch these videos. I want us to also watch some of the reactions of black celebrities concerning this particular matter. And then later on, let's come here, let's gather here and share our views. I believe that we are here to learn, relearn, unlearn what we need to unlearn, and also relearn what we need to relearn. I'm your presenter Turain once again, and if this is your first time in this platform, thank you for choosing us. Thank you for tuning in. We hope that you're going to stay up to the very end so that we can also hear from you as well concerning this matter here at hand. Feel free to like, subscribe, give us, share our content. We are going to appreciate. Let's rock in. Thank you for those who've subscribed.
I'm not black, I'm African.
Is that not black?
No.
Oh.
It's a big difference. You know what I'm saying? I came in a plane, they came in chains.
He sounds a little harsh, but it's the truth. Black Americans are not Africans. I am so tired of seeing Africans trying to force feed Africanness to Black Americans when they've made it explicitly clear that they are not Africans. They are not. The culture is different, the food is different, the way of life is different. What they consider to be nice, we don't consider it to be nice. The perception of life is so different. So the culture is different. And also one will argue and be like, well, 500 years backwards, they were Africans. If we apply that theory, a whole lot of us in West Africa will not be in West Africa. That's true. Some of the tribes in Nigeria are not African tribes living in Nigeria. But that does not mean that I'm not Nigerian. So they are not Africans. The way of life is different. Everything is different. And the way we go around trying to force feed being Africans to Black Americans, do Europeans go around forcing white Americans like Donald Trump to be German? They don't do that. So why are we the only ones trying to force feed this narrative on them? Whereas they don't want it. Whereas they don't want to do it. Yes, it's okay for them to visit, go and see the motherland and all of that, but they are not Africans. They won't commit a crime and someone will be like, oh, look at that African that committed a crime. No, we won't do that. Or one day I marry someone from New York and I go, oh, I married an African. No, I'll say I married an American because that's what he is, an American.
Remember when you was a child and you wanted to join a football team, a basketball team? You always went to the winning team. The losing team, even if it was your neighborhood, you would walk 20 blocks to play for the winning team. Most Latinos know that they are African. Most Dominicans know that they are African. But guess what? Until Africans start winning, I'm not identifying with that team. You see, that's what's going on. Yeah. That's why you get black people running around and say, I got Indian in me. Or I'm half Irish, I'm half Jew. They won't even let you in the church, but you brag about how you have this and half that. Why do black people get so excited when they find out they got a little bit of white in them? But when white people find out they got a little bit of black, they keep it quiet. We broadcast that I'm part native and part European. You know why? Because we're not proud to be black. So the minute we find out we got something else in us, it becomes a badge of pride because being an African has been a burden and not a blessing to most of us. But the Honorable Marcus Garvey said it best. He said, the white man has made being black a crime. I will make it a blessing. We have to sell the African back to himself.
Can a white person or an Indian or a Chinese or a Japanese person be an African?
That's beautiful. I lived in Britain for some years. I lived in Netherlands and Utrecht for some time. I spent some time in the US. And while I was in Europe for those years, I never became a European by all practical purposes. If I can go and live in India right now, I'll never be an Indian.
6 generations later, 10 generations later.
My children can assume citizenship and stuff like that. But in all fairness, if a black man living in Sweden right now and in Germany cannot be addressed as a European, that's exactly what you're asking me. And even if he has children and they're on the paper it's written European, but are they European? You're asking the essence of identity. No, there's no white man who can become an African because there's no African who can become a European. Full stop. Not mixing my words. And that's a reality we need to start dealing with. Right now, even up to now, our black brothers that are in America, what are they called?
African Americans.
Yes. Why the suffix? Why the prefix and why the suffix?
Because the white Americans are not called Irish, Italian, Spanish.
You have your answer right there.
You spoke about violence, and one of my criticisms has always been this concept of Ubuntu and being an African is almost always anti-violence, and maybe that is one of the weaknesses we have.
No.
Sorry, I mean violence in the context of what you were saying.
I am with you. Ubuntu does not mean we did not go to war. Ubuntu does not mean we did not protect our land. Ubuntu does not mean that if someone was killed in the village there, the other village would not pick up its spears when the people have failed to atone for what they have done.
Yes.
War was inevitable. So Ubuntu is not docility. Otherwise, why are we talking about spears and shields and chants of war? Ubuntu must not be abused as a docile state of an African.
Yes.
We're bowing down. No. Ubuntu is dignity that says you respect me because I respect you.
Is it not just defense, that violence, versus, you said in America, maybe Europe, where they intentionally go out of their way? The idea right now is for Africans to reclaim Africa. No one that I've ever heard of has ever spoken of an agenda of colonizing Asia, Europe, America as an African and say, look, while they're busy having fun on our continent, maybe to attain the power they attained or to reclaim whatever power we have, we're going to send small groups to go and colonize, whether as Nigerians.
I know we spoke about this the other day, but and I think many people got offended that if these white people don't change and they don't change fast, they now have an educated group of Africans who are equally scrupulous, equally sharp-minded like they are. And me and you, we share the same idea on that. If these guys don't change, we will wipe them off the face of the earth.
So I really want to understand why people who are not Africans goes to African panels or African live streams just to say they are not Africans. It sounds so confusing, you understand? Like, why do some of you do that? And why do you think people do that? Like, you go to African panels just to say you're not African. Bro, nobody is saying you're African. And also, if you know who you are, you wouldn't be telling people who you're not. So it's kind of confusing, and I'm trying to understand. Now we have established the fact that not all black people are from Africa. Understood. You can be an Indian, you can be whoever you want to be. You just have to be proud about it. You don't owe nobody apology. But I want to understand, when some of you do that, what does it mean? Is it that you're looking for information? Is it that you're confused? Is it that you truly don't know who you are? Because if you truly know who you are, I don't think you'll be telling people who you're not. Make this make sense to me if I'm getting confused, but it doesn't just sync right for me. It's just like me going to Indian or indigenous live streams and be like, I am not indigenous. Who called me there? And this is a live stream for indigenous. So it's kind of confusing, but...
Because that was the industry in Africa. You had to know how to farm. They kidnapped successful working people to build the country. But psychologically, slaves is the term. Okay. I'm not that guy because there's not something in me that feels like something's missing, and I got to put that in there. Till I realized, and I went there, I can never look at myself the same. And oh my goodness, like I said, I wish that for everybody to find out. And it's not on some, new age shit. It's just, the truth.
Yeah, welcome back again. And as I said earlier, that people have different perspectives. I also have mine. You also have yours. And before I start to share mine, I'd like us to look at something that I researched here, and I think AI is also of help here. I did ask it such a question, and this is what it had to say. The term blacks and the designation Africans are often used interchangeably in casual speech, but they are not strictly synonymous. While many black people have ancestral roots in Africa, not all blacks individuals today are African in the cultural, national, and or even genetic sense. To answer whether blacks are Africans, we must consider the historical, anthropological, cultural, and social political dimensions of both terms. And first, historical and anthropological roots. The origin of Homo sapiens is widely accepted to be Africa. This is widely accepted to be Africa. And this means all humans, regardless of their current racial classification, trace their ancestry back to the African continent. However, what we refer to as black people today primarily refers to individuals with dark skin tones, curly hair, and certain facial features, characteristics associated with sub-Saharan African populations. These features evolved in African environment as adaptations to climatic and UV exposure. So anthropologically and biologically, most black people have African roots. They have African roots, particularly from regions such as West Africa, Central Africa, and East Africa. Uganda, Kenya, yeah, you can name them all. And secondly, there is a diaspora and identity, and this comes in due to the transatlantic slave trade. So the transatlantic slave trade forcibly removed millions of Africans from their homelands, primarily from West and Central Africa, and transported them to the Americas and the Caribbean. Their descendants form significant black populations in countries like the United States, Brazil, Haiti, and Jamaica. And these populations often identify as black, but not necessarily as African in the national or cultural sense. For example, an African American might be proud of their African ancestry, but identify more with American culture, some of which you've seen even in these clips that I've prepared here for you. And this happens because of having cut ties with directly to specific African ethnic groups or languages. It does happen. And thirdly, we have cultural African identity versus racial identity. You know, being African is not just about genetics or skin. It also encompasses language, traditions, national identity, and culture, the African culture. A good example is a light-skinned person born and raised in Egypt or Algeria is African by geography, but may not be classified as black. I think being African is more of genetics and not necessarily culture, because we have different cultures, but more of genes. I see this brings this clearly, and you can also see from the video that I played here for you for Joshua Maponga. He illustrated this clearly. And so I get to this point. I do say that black people don't have to feel like Africans are really pushing them to be, or forcing them to be Africans. Information is out there. If you feel like you're more of American, that's up to you. That's your perspective. If you feel like you are more of African than American, that's also up to you. But one thing I am very sure with is African people don't have any problem with black people or black Americans coming to Africa. You can also see some of the videos that I prepared here for you down there. You'll see most of Africans are very happy that some of blacks are coming back to the motherland. They're coming back to Africa. And you also see countries like Ghana, they are giving citizenship to these black people simply because we don't try to detach from you or not identify with you, because we love you, regardless the fact that maybe some don't feel like they are Africans. We all have different opinions, like I said earlier, and that should be respected. That should be respected, completely respected. And I just say that this is a debate that can go on and go on and go on without an end. What matters is, do you feel loved? Do you feel a sense of belonging wherever you are or whatever you identify yourself with? That's what matters most. That's what people need to look at, not some of the things that we've been seeing. And I'll just say, you need to feel that feeling of being home, that feeling of being around someone who cares. Yeah, these are my opinion. I don't know, what are your thoughts? We may differ in opinion, and we may have different opinion, and they are all welcomed. Share what you think. What are your thoughts? What is your take on this in the comment section? I've been your presenter, Turain, and man, I'm humbled to have you here. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for staying up to this, and I'm also hoping that I'm going to see you in the next video. I urge you to support us by simply subscribing, give us a like, share our content. We're going to appreciate, man. See you soon.